I used to think the grander the gesture, the deeper the love. Maybe that's why I went all out for the gender reveal party, a rooftop venue with a panoramic view of the skyline, gourmet catering, an imported champagne tower, and a drone scheduled to drop a burst of pink or blue confetti over the crowd. All of it. Every last dollar, every decision, every hour of lost sleep was mine. For her. For us. I wanted to create a moment we'd talk about for years. And it started like that, a moment. People gathered under string lights, soft music playing in the background, glasses of sparkling rose clinking in laughter. I remember standing beside her, my wife of 3 years, Lila Voss. She was glowing in a white dress that hugged her baby bump, her smile wide, hand resting on mine as we welcomed guests. I felt proud, nervous, hopeful. I thought I was stepping into the next chapter of fatherhood. When the drone appeared overhead, people cheered. I held the trigger remote and looked over at her. "Ready?" I asked, heart hammering. She nodded, beaming. I clicked the button. Pink. 1,000 pieces of shimmering pink rained down, catching light in midair as people gasped, clapped, and shouted their congratulations. "It's a girl," someone shouted. I remember smiling so hard my cheeks ached. Lila turned to kiss me, and for one brief moment, the world was perfect. Then she asked for the microphone. I thought, maybe she wanted to thank everyone. Maybe even thank me. After all, I planned every inch of this evening while balancing a full-time job. But that wasn't what came out of her mouth. "Before we continue, I just want to give a special thank you to someone very dear to me," she said. "Someone who's been my rock through this entire pregnancy. Kellen Monroe." My smile faltered. The name hit me like a sucker punch. Kellen? There was a pause. Confusion rippled through the crowd. A few people clapped awkwardly. I stood frozen. Kellen was a friend of hers. Or so I thought. Some guy from her marketing agency. I'd met him twice. Harmless. Quiet. Or so he pretended to be. She looked out at the guests, her eyes glassy with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without him," she continued. "He's been there every step. When I was sick, when I was scared, he stepped up." People started murmuring. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And there it was, that twisted smile on her face. Not nervous. Not loving. Calculated. Then she turned to me. "And as for you," she said, reaching under the table beside the cake, "I got you something special too." She handed me a box, sleek, heavy, clearly expensive. It looked like a watch box. And it was. Inside, nestled in velvet, was a branded timepiece. Elegant. Luxurious. And on the back, engraved in delicate lettering, were 6 words. "You are not the father, divorced." Laughter. Not from everyone, but from her friends. Her sister, Kellen, who was grinning like a damn clown in the corner. My blood went cold. I held the watch in my palm, the world spinning around me. The city lights blurred in the distance. Someone let out a low whistle. Another person coughed awkwardly. And me? I didn't say a word. I looked at Lila, her hand resting on her hip like she'd just won some twisted contest. Like she was proud. Like she was waiting for me to explode so she could play victim. Instead, I did something else. I calmly set the box on the cake table, adjusted my blazer, and walked toward the exit. Not fast. Not in anger. But with purpose. The DJ stopped the music. Someone called my name. But I didn't turn around. I kept walking. Past the bartenders. Past the valet stand. Past the flower arch I paid extra for because she said it would make good pictures. I got into my car. Turned off my phone. And drove. No destination. Just away. Away from the laughter. Away from the betrayal. Away from the confetti still drifting through the air like a cruel joke. As I hit the freeway, my phone buzzed on the seat beside me. Once. Twice. Again. Nonstop. I glanced at the screen. 121 missed calls. In 4 minutes. All from her. For minutes. That's how long it took for the first call to come in after I left the rooftop. For minutes between betrayal and panic. I had just merged onto the highway when my phone started vibrating. It was on the seat next to me, screen glowing bright in the dark car. Lila's name. I didn't even touch it. I let it ring. It stopped. Then started again. And again. By the time I hit the next exit, I glanced down and saw the count climbing. 17 missed calls. I turned the screen face down. But the vibration kept going. It was relentless, like she thought sheer volume would crack me open. As if calling me 121 times could erase what she did in one moment. I didn't turn around. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove, white-knuckled and locked in silence. The city lights blurred past me like ghosts. My mind? It wasn't racing. No. It was chillingly still. That terrified me more than rage would have. I didn't feel like a man who lost something. I felt like a man who just got released from a prison he didn't know he was in. When I finally pulled into a gas station 20 miles out, I parked, cut the engine, and stared into the dashboard light. 121 missed calls. They stacked up like a flashing siren of guilt. I finally flipped the phone back over. All from her. Some from her sister, too. A few from numbers I didn't save, probably her friends. Probably the same ones who laughed. I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. That image wouldn't leave me. The box, the engraving, the way she smirked when she handed it to me. Who does that? Who turns a gender reveal into a spectacle of cruelty? The worst part wasn't even the message on the watch. It was that she planned it, had it made, measured the timing, smiled while I paid the caterer and tipped the drone pilot. Smiled while I clinked glasses with strangers and told people, we're having a girl. I rested my hand on the steering wheel and laughed, dry and sharp, not because anything was funny, but because I couldn't believe I was ever that blind. What kind of man plans a whole celebration to discover he's been nothing more than a walking wallet? The kind of man I refuse to be anymore. My phone buzzed again. I turned it off completely this time. No airplane mode. Just gone. The screen faded into black, and with it, I felt something inside me finally settle. I got back on the road and drove until I saw a diner I used to visit back in college, small, neon lit, with a flickering open sign that looked like it was trying its best to give up. I pulled in. The waitress, older, with gray roots and a tired smile, slid me a coffee without asking. I must have looked like I needed it. You okay, Hannah? She asked. I didn't answer. Just nodded once and looked out the window. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for my car and a broken vending machine humming near the entrance. It was quiet. A kind of quiet you don't get when you're married to someone like Lila. When she walked into her room, it wasn't peace. It was performance. Everything about her was curated. Her laugh, her social media, her fake gratitude. I used to think it was charm. Now I know it was armor, and I was just a decorative accessory. I sat in that diner until the sun started rising, sipping burnt coffee and letting the emptiness become familiar. Somewhere between the third refill and the fourth, I started thinking clearly. I had no plan, no suitcase, no toothbrush, no destination, but I had clarity. I would not be returning home, not for a conversation, not for an apology, not even for my things. If she wanted to mail me the rest of my clothes, fine. But I wasn't stepping back into that apartment, not after the performance she staged on a rooftop filled with people I respected. When I finally stood to leave, I pulled out my card to pay. The waitress waved me off. Guy before you covered it, she said, nodding toward the door. Said you looked like you needed it more than him. I looked outside. No one there. No headlights. No cars pulling away. I guess kindness still existed in the world. Somewhere. I got in my car, and this time I didn't just drive aimlessly. I headed to Milo's place. My oldest friend. The guy who always told me Lila was bad news, and the only one I ignored because I thought he didn't understand how complex she was. No. He understood. She wasn't complex. She was cruel. When Milo opened the door and saw me standing there with nothing but a phone, a watch box, and bags under my eyes, he didn't say a word. He just stepped aside, handed me a spare blanket, and pointed to the couch. I collapsed onto it like a man who had just finished a marathon with his soul dragging behind him. I didn't tell him what happened. Not that night. He didn't ask. The only sound in the room was the hum of his fridge and the creak of the couch springs as I shifted to lie flat. And just like that, for the first time in weeks, hell, maybe months, I slept. Not because everything was fine, but because I had finally walked away. Not from a party, but from the lie. I woke up with sunlight in my eyes and a knot in my back. Milo's couch wasn't built for comfort. It was the same one he'd had since college, but I'd never slept deeper in my life. No tossing, no turning, no dreams about pink confetti or engraved betrayals. Just darkness, then morning. I blinked at the ceiling for a while. It had a small crack running down the plaster, the kind of thing Milo never bothered fixing. That was the thing about him. He didn't sweat the small stuff. Or the big stuff. He just dealt with life head on. That's probably why he was still standing when most people folded. I sat up slowly, my joints protesting. My mouth tasted like regret and diner coffee. But beneath the grime and stiffness, something felt lighter, like my body was finally getting the message. We're not going back. Milo walked in holding 2 mugs of coffee, one in each hand. He set one down on the chipped table in front of me and sank into his battered recliner like he'd been waiting for this moment. "Look like hell," he said, sipping his coffee. "Feel worse," I muttered. "You hungry?" I shook my head. My stomach was a knot of rusted metal. Milo didn't press it. He never did. That's the thing about friends who've seen you cry over failed exams, bad breakups, and one epic tequila hangover in 2014. They don't need a script. "You gonna tell me what happened?" I stared at the rising steam curling off the mug. It was supposed to be a gender reveal. "Oh." He leaned back, eyes narrowing. "She made it about herself again?" I chuckled bitterly. "Not just herself. She made it about Kellen Monroe." Milo froze. "Who?" "Some guy from her job. Marketing director or brand consultant or whatever the hell title she gave him. I thought he was harmless. Quiet. Polite." Milo raised his eyebrows. "And she thanked him publicly. On the mic called him her rock. Then handed me a gift." "Oh no." "Oh yes." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Designer watch. Looked expensive. Real sleek. Engraved with "You are not the father. Divorced." Milo stared at me, deadpan. "You're making that up." I didn't smile. Didn't blink. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "She had it ready," I said, voice low. "Planned. Executed. In front of 60 people. Her friends laughed. Some of mine did too, until they realized I wasn't laughing with them. Milo sat back in his chair like the words had punched him. He ran a hand over his face. "And the baby?" I shrugged. "Hell if I know. Not mine, apparently. DNA test? Booked. Lawyer too." He whistled. "You serious?" "I'm done." He nodded slowly. "Good. Took you long enough." I looked over at him, surprised. "You knew?" "I knew she never saw you." "Not really. She saw the version of you that supported her career, paid the bills, smiled for photos, and kept quiet. She didn't marry you. She hired you. You just didn't see the contract." That landed harder than I expected. I rubbed the side of my face, feeling the sting of truth seep into old wounds. Milo wasn't trying to hurt me. He was trying to show me what I refused to see for years. "I gave her everything, man." He nodded. "I know. She wanted to move cities. We moved. She didn't like my car. I sold it. I turned down a promotion so I could be home more. Bought that apartment in her name because her credit was shot. I did it all thinking I was building something with her. You were. She was building something on you." That hit harder. I looked around his apartment. Bare, cluttered, warm. No Instagram aesthetic. No curated throw pillows. Just real life. Real space. "Feels good here," I said. Milo smiled. "Because nothing fake lives here." I nodded and took another sip of the coffee. It was bitter. Strong. Real. Everything I needed right now. "You can stay as long as you want," he added. "I'll probably need a few days," I said. "Got to talk to the lawyer. Sort things out." "You tell your job yet?" I shook my head. "They think I'm on a mini vacation." Milo scoffed. "Well, technically, you are. Emotional detox retreat. With peeling wallpaper." That made me laugh. The first real laugh since the party. We spent the rest of the morning in silence, sipping coffee and occasionally tossing sarcasm back and forth. It felt like I was recharging. Like each moment away from her, from the apartment, from that night, was returning a piece of me I didn't know I'd lost. Around noon, I grabbed my phone. Still off. I hesitated, then powered it on. The screen lit up. 121 missed calls. And now, 47 unread texts. I didn't read them. I just scrolled past the previews. "We need to talk." "You took it the wrong way. Please call me back." It was a joke. A joke. I nearly threw the phone across the room. Instead, I placed it face down on the table. "She thinks she can fix it," I said. Milo looked over. "She thinks she still owns you." I leaned back on the couch, letting that sink in. "You're not going back," he said. Not a question. A statement. "No," I replied. "Good. Because the guy who walked away from that rooftop? He's not the same guy who let her talk him into becoming her shadow." I didn't say anything, but I believed it. That night, I sat at Milo's desk, opened my laptop, and started writing. Just for myself. I poured out the whole story. The party. The betrayal. The quiet rage. I didn't know why I wrote it. I wasn't a writer. But the words came fast. Furious. Raw. When I was done, I saved the file with a name that made me pause. 121 missed calls. That was the beginning of something. And I knew. When I finally got up from that chair hours later, my eyes sore, my fingers stiff, that whatever came next wasn't going to be about her anymore. It was going to be about me. By the third morning at Milo's place, I was done reacting, done running, done waiting for the emotional fog to lift. I wasn't going back. Not physically, not emotionally, and definitely not legally. I called Rowan Quaid. He was a name I'd saved months ago, back when a friend from work whispered over drinks that if things ever got ugly, Rowan's the guy you want. The kind of lawyer who didn't flinch at drama, he dissected it with a scalpel. His receptionist picked up on the second ring. This is Quaid and Finch. I need to speak with Rowan, I said. What's the nature of your case? I hesitated. Let's say paternity fraud, public humiliation, and a watch I'd like to bury. Silence. Then, he'll call you back in 10. He called in 6. Ezra, he said, voice sharp and calm. Tell me everything. So I did. I told him about the rooftop party, the pink confetti, the engraved insult in the form of a luxury timepiece. I told him about Lila, her affair with Kellen Monroe, the fact that she'd used the gender reveal as a public exorcism of our marriage. He didn't interrupt, didn't gasp, didn't say, you poor thing. He just said, we'll start with 2 things, paternity testing and asset protection. I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for days. Can I afford you? I asked. You can't afford not to. Fair enough. Within 24 hours, Rowan had scheduled an expedited DNA test. Quiet. Discreet. No labs with long wait times or judgmental stares. A private physician came to Milo's apartment, swabbed the inside of my cheek, and left like a ghost. Results within 48 hours, she said. I sat on Milo's couch after she left, hands clasped tight, heart doing that thing again where it beat in my throat instead of my chest. It was just confirmation. I already knew. But knowing and proving are 2 different things. Meanwhile, Rowan got to work. He had me list everything I owned, shared, or funded. Apartment lease? My name. Bank accounts? Split. But I paid 80% of what was in them. Credit cards? Mostly me. The party? Every dollar mine. She has no leverage, Rowan said over speakerphone. She just has volume. You've got proof? She's loud, I muttered. Good. Let her be. That kind of noise makes judges allergic. We'll keep quiet. Sharp. Strategic. I liked him already. 2 days later, the DNA results came in. I knew what they'd say. But still, I stared at the email before opening it, palms sweating. I clicked the PDF and read the words. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. That was it. Definitive. Not mine. Not my baby. Not my future. My stomach dropped. Not from shock, but from release. I hadn't realized how much hope I'd buried under my calm exterior. A tiny voice inside me had still whispered, maybe she lied. Maybe it was a cruel joke. Maybe this was just theater, and when the curtain drops, I'll still be the father. No. She meant it. She planned it. And now I had the science to prove what my gut already knew. I was a prop in her performance, not a partner in her life. Rowan filed the papers that afternoon. Divorce, no contest, with documented infidelity and paternity fraud. He drafted a proposal that left her with the minimum legally required, and not a cent more. She might fight it, he warned. But she won't win. Good. Let her flail. Let her cry. Let her scream about betrayal while ignoring the grenade she pulled the pin on in front of 60 people. I stayed off social media, but Milo didn't. He told me Lila was trying to spin the story, saying the party was performance art, a playful social commentary on traditional gender roles and expectations. A joke. Always a joke when the consequences show up. Meanwhile, Kellen Monroe had disappeared from her posts. Deleted. Scrubbed. Gone. Rumors said he'd blocked her number. Maybe he wasn't ready to co-father a baby with a woman trending for all the wrong reasons. I spent the next few nights working with Rowan, drafting statements, gathering receipts, building a digital wall of everything I'd paid for, from doctor visits to drone rentals. Milo watched from the side, arms folded, eyes sharp. You're different now, he said one night. Good different or bitter different? Both. I laughed. But he wasn't wrong. I was becoming someone else. Not colder. Not crueler. Just clearer. I had a lawyer. I had proof. I had a line I wasn't going to step back over. I'd been loyal to a fault. Devoted to delusion. But not anymore. That watch, the one Lila gave me like a slap in a velvet box, I kept it. Not as a memento. as a reminder. A reminder that betrayal wears silk dresses and fake smiles. That sometimes love is a stage, and you're not the star. You're the exit cue. But not anymore. I wasn't exiting. I was rebuilding. The first time I stepped back into the apartment, it didn't feel like I was coming home. It felt like I was walking into a museum exhibit called The Life of a Man Who Got Played. Everything was in place, just like we left it. The gray couch she picked from that overpriced interior design boutique. The gold-trimmed coffee table she said elevated the space. The print of a beach in Tulum hanging crookedly above our TV, somewhere she always wanted to go but never with me. And there, sitting on the entry table like it had been waiting for me, was the branded watch box. Still closed. Still smug. I didn't touch it. I walked through the apartment slowly, like it might bite me if I moved too fast. The silence was loud and fake, just like everything else in here. I'd signed the lease, paid the rent, bought every fork, every bedsheet, every roll of toilet paper. But this place? It wasn't mine. It was hers, built by her taste, decorated by her lies. I didn't cry. I didn't even curse. I just grabbed a roll of trash bags from the kitchen and started clearing. Anything that had her scent, her initials, or her Instagram caption energy. Into the bag. The throw pillows that read, "Wifey" and "Love you more"? Gone. The collection of scented candles she never let me light? Gone. Her wall of motivational quotes in gold frames? I knocked it down with one swipe. Love is patient. Good vibes only. A queen doesn't need a king. Apparently not, Lila. I tackled the closet next. All the dresses, the heels, the endless boxes labeled with brands I used to think were exotic. Now they just looked empty. I bagged them, labeled them, returned to sender, and pushed them into the hallway. The nursery came last. It used to be a small office. When we found out she was pregnant, she turned it into what she called the dream corner. White crib. Soft blush curtains. A gold mobile shaped like stars. I stood in the doorway and stared for a long time. This was supposed to be my daughter's room. Ours. Now, it just felt like a lie with pastel walls. I didn't destroy anything. I didn't tear down the mobile or slam the crib into pieces. I just stood there and reclaimed the air. Then I opened the window and let it all out, the stale smell of lavender and regret. That night, I slept in the guest room. Why? Because the bed in the master still smelled like her. And I wasn't ready to wage that war while half exhausted and barely human. The next morning, I texted Rowan. She has 48 hours to get her stuff. Then I donated. He responded instantly. I'll file an inventory notice. Start documenting. So I did. I took photos. Labeled bins. Wrote down everything I touched. Not for her. For me. I wasn't leaving room for more gaslighting. You didn't tell me. That was mine. You're being dramatic. Not this time. This time, I was methodical. Ruthless. Fair. I even folded her things neatly. But I left that damn watch right where she put it. It belonged here. A relic of the final scene. That weekend, Milo helped me rearrange the living room. We turned the couch to face the window instead of the TV. I bought a new rug, gray, thick, not trendy. I picked up an oak bookshelf and filled it with things that had nothing to do with her. Old photography books. A model airplane from my dad. A cheap lava lamp I used to love in college. When Milo left that evening, he paused at the door. You good? I nodded. This doesn't feel like her place anymore. He smiled. That's because it isn't. After he left, I stood in the middle of the apartment, listening to the silence. This time, it didn't feel loud. It felt like peace. The next morning, I opened all the windows, let the sunlight pour in, and brewed coffee that didn't smell like compromise. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I sat at my laptop, opened a blank document, and typed. What does it mean to start over? The cursor blinked, but I didn't, because I knew the answer. It means you strip away the weight. You take the lies to the curb. And you stay behind to build something real. One drawer, one lamp, one truth at a time. It started with a blank page. Just a blinking cursor and the heaviness in my chest. It was around 2:17 a.m. I hadn't slept. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and second chances. I was sitting cross-legged on the floor with my laptop resting on a cardboard box labeled New Life, Don't Break. I didn't plan to write anything for anyone else. I didn't even plan to write. But grief is funny like that. It leaks. Out of your thoughts, your breath, your fingertips. I guess mine leaked into a keyboard. I started typing. I didn't use her name. I didn't need to. I just wrote what happened. The party. The confetti. The toast. The branded betrayal. The watch. The 121 missed calls in 4 minutes. And I wrote how I walked away. How I didn't yell, didn't throw anything, didn't cry, not in front of her, not even in the car. How I sat at a diner at 3 a.m. with a plate of untouched waffles and a waitress who didn't ask questions. How I moved into my best friend's guest room with nothing but a charger and a pocket full of burned promises. And how, for the first time in years, I wasn't being silenced. When I finished writing, I sat there staring at the screen. I could have saved it, closed the laptop, told myself it was enough to get it out. But something pushed me to share it. Not out of revenge, not out of ego, out of hunger for anyone else who'd ever stood in their own living room, wondering how love could turn into a landmine. So I opened a free blog account. Title, 121 Missed Calls. Author, Anonymous. I clicked publish at 2:59 a.m. By 3:04, someone had already shared it. By 7 a.m., it had 83 views. By the end of the day, it had over 6,000. The comments hit first. I felt every word. This happened to me. Almost the same story. You just put into words what I haven't been able to say for 5 years. I sat there, stunned, as the page filled with echoes of broken people, men, women, strangers across time zones and continents, who had been blindsided, erased, laughed at, humiliated. They weren't asking me to fix it. They just needed to know they weren't alone. And neither did I. I started posting weekly. Nothing preachy. Nothing polished. Just pages of raw truth. The process. The ugly middle. The furniture rearrangement. The drawer I left the watch in. The night I stood in the nursery and realized I was never meant to be a father to that child. I wrote the things people are told to keep private. The shame. The numbness. The part where you stand in the shower and rehearse arguments you'll never get to finish. Somewhere around week 3, I got an email from a guy named Elijah. Reading your blog saved me from sending a text I would have regretted. Thanks for being the guy who didn't go back. I sat with that one for a long time. Because that was me, once. The guy who wanted to fix everything, even when it wasn't broken, just poisoned. That same week, a woman from Michigan met me. I'm 41. My fiancé of 6 years just called off our wedding with a group text. But your words? They reminded me that quiet dignity is its own kind of thunder. Thunder. That word stayed with me. The blog didn't have a logo or a brand, but it had momentum. People started reposting my stories under the hashtag 121 missed calls. Then came the emails, the invites, a mental health podcast, a virtual men's group, even a law firm asking if they could reference my story in a paternity fraud awareness campaign. I turned my closet into a tiny recording studio, pinned up sound foam, bought a mic, started narrating the blog posts, not to monetize, just to make them realer. One afternoon, Milo leaned against the doorframe while I was editing a post called, I Took Back the Room, Not Just the Keys. You know, he said, you're kind of starting something here. I looked at him. It's just writing. He shook his head. Nah, it's proof. For everyone who got burned and thought they were crazy. That night, I stared at the blinking cursor again. Only this time, I wasn't empty. I was full of stories. Not just mine. Dozens. Hundreds. People sending me their wounds, their witnesses, their recoveries. It was no longer about Lila. Not even about me, really. It was about all of us who were handed pain and told to swallow it quietly. So I kept writing. And 121 missed calls kept growing. I found out she was spiraling the same way I found out she betrayed me. Indirectly, through people who thought I still cared. The first message came from Jules, a mutual acquaintance who was more her friend than mine. We'd spoken maybe twice outside of group settings. And yet, there it was in my inbox. Hey, not sure if you've heard, but Lila's been having a rough time. Just thought you should know. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? Tell her I hope the spotlight she stole keeps her warm at night? But I won't lie. I was curious. So I looked. And what I found, let's just say the fall wasn't subtle. Her Instagram, the same curated, golden glow collection of perfect breakfasts, staged laughs, and soft-filtered declarations of growth, had gone dark. Literally. She deleted every post from the last year except for a single photo, the gender reveal party. No captions. No comments. Just a still image of her standing beside a pink cake, smiling like she hadn't just burned a man alive in front of 60 people. Then I saw the video. I didn't go looking for it. It found me. A stranger tagged 121 missed calls on Twitter with the words, "Is this her?" I clicked it. It was someone's shaky footage of the party, probably filmed on instinct when she started her speech. You could hear the crowd's laughter. You could see her holding the mic. You could see me, standing there frozen, holding the watch like a man who just realized the joke was his life. Then came the soundbite that would haunt her more than me. "You are not the father, divorced." The clip was 18 seconds. But the internet doesn't need more than that. Comments exploded. Who even does this? She embarrassed herself more than him. He handled that like a king. I hope he walked out and never came back. And the most repeated one? Where is he now? That made me pause. Because I wasn't hiding anymore. I was thriving. But I didn't need to rub it in. Let her fall on her own. Let gravity and guilt do what I never could. Still, the updates kept coming. From mutual friends. From distant relatives. Even from people who used to idolize her. She took a leave from work. She tried launching a podcast called Healing with Lila, but it bombed after one episode. She's been posting passive-aggressive quotes to her story, tagging no one but clearly aimed at someone. She tried to start a GoFundMe for single motherhood support, but got roasted in the comments. Each piece was like a brick tumbling from the image she built. Not that I was watching eagerly. I wasn't waiting for revenge. I was just observing the collapse. Like watching a house of mirrors implode from the inside. The final nail came from someone I never expected, her cousin, Tessa. We hadn't spoken in years. She was always the quiet one at family events, polite, eyes always scanning, never saying much. She DM'd me out of nowhere. Just wanted to say, "I always thought you were the best part of her. I'm sorry you found out the way you did. But also, thank you. You gave a lot of us the courage to walk away too." That one stuck with me. Because sometimes, when you leave a fire, you don't just save yourself. You light the path for others to see the smoke for what it is. It wasn't long before people started saying it outright. She ruined her own life. He didn't even need to fight back. He just walked away, and she burned it all down trying to make him notice. They were right. I didn't expose her. She exposed herself. She thought she could control the narrative like she controlled everything else. But a moment crafted for clout turned into the wrecking ball that leveled her whole performance. Meanwhile, I was working, writing, building. Sasha and Rafe. The two guys I was mentoring had turned our rough startup idea into an actual app. People were calling it therapy in your pocket. A space for legal resources, emotional check-ins, and real-life stories from people who'd walked through betrayal and come out stronger. We called the project Rebuilt, not in spite of what I went through, but because of it. And Lila? She was silent now. No new calls. No new messages. Just the occasional sighting from people who still followed her. She looks hollow. It's like she aged 10 years in 3 months. I heard she's living with her sister now. But the most satisfying part? I didn't feel anything. No smugness. No vengeance. Just stillness. Because when someone shows you who they are in front of an audience and a drone camera, you don't argue with it. You let them have the stage. And then you leave. So they can perform alone. You don't rebuild overnight. Not when the wreckage was made of things you once prayed for. The truth is, I didn't wake up one morning after the party and think, let's start a movement. I woke up thinking, don't check your phone. Don't fall apart before coffee. But small actions have power. One drawer cleared. One honest blog post. One morning run to nowhere. And slowly, my life began to reorganize. Not like a renovation, but like a demolition site repurposed into something clean, quiet, and finally mine. By the time Lila's world began unraveling publicly, I was deep into building something real with two guys half my age, Sasha and Rafe. Sasha was pure energy, big ideas, bigger expectations. He had wild hair, a cracked phone screen, and the kind of confidence that bordered on delusional, but he meant it. Rafe was quieter, data-driven, math-brained, kept receipts in color-coded folders and ideas in timelines. They pitched their idea to me over waffles at Milo's favorite diner. An app that connects people facing emotional or legal crises with resources that don't feel like cold, robotic government brochures. Like a panic button that opens real options, Sasha had said, eyes glowing. Support groups, lawyers, therapists, and personal stories. What would you even call it? I'd asked, half amused. Rafe had shrugged. Rebuilt. I paused. Because that word had been bouncing around in my head since the blog took off. Not survivor. Not stronger. Rebuilt. Rebuilt meant broken first. It meant designed differently. I was in. I didn't invest money at first, just time. I helped them plan their phases, shape the language, rework the app interface so it didn't feel like a digital hospital waiting room. I offered my story as their prototype, someone who didn't crumble under betrayal but channeled it into motion. At night, I still wrote the blog. At dawn, I ran 5 miles in the dark and didn't care that I didn't have a destination. The pain in my legs, the sweat in my shirt, those were the only receipts I needed for proof of movement. The apartment changed too. I got rid of the last box of her stuff. Finally dropped the watch in the drawer next to the DNA results in the signed divorce papers. I bought new bookshelves, a guitar, a cheap desk from IKEA, and a lamp I liked. Not because it fit a theme, but because it lit the page. The nursery? I turned it into a project room. Chalkboard walls. Blueprints. A tiny whiteboard that said in thick black letters, "No one is coming to save you. Build anyway." I started sleeping better. Not because things were perfect, but because nothing was fake. Sasha and Rafe asked if I'd speak at their soft launch, a small event in a shared workspace downtown. Just 30 people. Most of them friends, potential partners, a few journalists. I said yes. Standing at the front of that room, watching all those eyes settle on me, I thought back to that rooftop party. Same number of people. Same spotlight. Only this time, I controlled the story. I told them everything in 10 minutes flat. The pink confetti. The engraved watch. The 121 missed calls. But I didn't end on what was done to me. I ended on what I did with it. How I built the blog that became a rallying point. How the young founders saw something useful in my scars. How I wasn't just rebuilding. I was helping others do it too. The applause that followed was real. Not forced. Not obligatory. Just real. After the event, a woman came up to me with tears in her eyes. Said she read the blog after her divorce. Said it helped her hold a boundary she'd been too afraid to draw. "You saved me from answering a text I didn't owe a reply to," she whispered. That stayed with me for days. Because I'd spent so much time thinking I was a man abandoned. But I was starting to realize I was actually a man discovered. Discovered by people who needed proof that silence wasn't weakness. That walking away didn't make you cold. That healing didn't always roar, it often whispered, "Keep going." I started saying yes more. Yes to panels. Yes to mentorships. Yes to hosting workshops about post-betrayal clarity and financial safeguarding in relationships. I got invited to speak on a podcast. Then too, wrote guest articles for relationship recovery blogs. Helped edit anonymous letters people wanted to send but never did. I was no longer the man who walked out of a rooftop party holding a fake smile and a cruel gift. I was the man who walked forward and never stopped. I kept the watch. Not because I couldn't let go, but because sometimes the very thing that tries to define you ends up becoming your reminder of what you'll never be again. It sat in the back of my desk drawer for months, tucked between the DNA test that cleared me and the signed divorce documents Rowan filed like a mic drop. I never wore it, never dusted it, just let it sit there silent, heavy, useless. Kind of like the marriage it came from. Every so often, I'd open the drawer while grabbing a pen or charger, and there it was, sleek, expensive, soulless. I didn't hate it. I just didn't need it anymore. Because I had something better now, purpose. The blog, 121 missed calls, was no longer just mine. It had become something living, breathing. People from all over send in letters, confessions, their own stories of betrayal and rebirth. They tagged me in photos wearing shirts with the word reborn across the chest in bold white. They started quoting the lines I'd written at 3 a.m. while staring out the window, wondering who I was now that I was no longer a husband or a father. Funny how grief clears your vision once you stop chasing closure. The blog birthed a newsletter. That newsletter built a brand. And that brand led to emails from universities, nonprofits, and conferences. The biggest one came on a Tuesday. Subject line, Keynote Opportunity, Milan Rebuild Summit 2025. I stared at it for a full minute. Milan. As in Italy. As in, I was just a guy who got handed a breakup disguised as a gender reveal, and now I'm being flown across the ocean to talk about healing? I said yes. Of course I did. By the time I boarded the plane, the app one helped Sasha and Rafe rebuild, had launched officially and surpassed 80K users. I'd been featured in 2 podcasts, 3 mental health panels, and was currently outlining a book I never thought I'd have the voice to write. I'd let Lila keep the apartment. Not legally, just symbolically. I no longer needed to own the place where I was erased. I moved into a smaller loft with brick walls, high windows, and no furniture chosen out of guilt. I even started playing guitar again. Badly, but honestly. The night before my flight to Milan, I opened the drawer again. The watch was still there. I took it out, turned it over in my palm. You are not the father, divorced. That used to hurt. Now, it made me smirk. Because yes, I wasn't the father. And thank God. I wasn't the fool anymore either. I slipped the watch into a velvet pouch and packed it, not to wear, but to show. You'll see why. Milan. The morning of the keynote, I stood backstage, adjusting my jacket while a technician tested the mic. It had been exactly 1 year to the day since that party. Since the pink confetti. Since she handed me that box with the pride of a magician revealing her grand finale. Now, here I was, standing behind the curtain of a glass-walled conference center overlooking a city that had no memory of her, but would soon know me. The summit host walked over and smiled. You ready? I nodded. They cued the lights. The crowd quieted. I stepped out. Applause. Not pity. Not sympathy. Respect. I reached the mic and took a deep breath. I once paid for a gender reveal party where I was handed a luxury watch. I began, voice steady. It was engraved with 6 words. You are not the father, divorced. A ripple of laughter. But not cruel. Just stunned. I held up the watch, now resting inside its velvet pouch. This isn't a prop. This is real. So was the betrayal. So were the 121 missed calls that followed when I walked away without screaming, without threatening, without begging. The room was silent now. You see, we're told to fight when someone breaks us. To scream. To make noise. But I learned something more powerful. Silence backed by action is louder than vengeance ever could be. I shared everything. The blog. The app. The messages. The morning runs. The reclaimed furniture. The woman in the coffee shop who whispered, your blog helped me walk away. The late nights spent replying to strangers whose names I'll never know, but whose pain I'd lived myself. I didn't mention Lila's name. I didn't need to. This wasn't about her anymore. She may have handed me the symbol of our end, but I turned it into the key to my new beginning. When I finished, the applause didn't just rise. It roared. I stepped off stage, heart thumping. Not with anxiety, but with clarity. I'd crossed over. No longer the man escaping shame. I was the man holding the map out for others. Backstage, a young man approached me. His name was Oliver. 22, wide-eyed. Nervous. My fiancée left me last month, he said, voice shaking. Said I wasn't driven enough. Took my laptop and my dignity. But your story. I don't feel like trash anymore. I feel awake. I smiled and handed him the watch. His eyes widened. I can't take this. You won't keep it, I said. You'll pass it to the next person who needs it. He nodded. It had become a torch, not a trophy. I flew back home 2 days later. The apartment was quiet, just like I liked it. I opened my laptop and started writing a new post. It's been 1 year since I walked away from the party that tried to destroy me. Since then, I've built a new name, a new mission, a new version of myself. I wasn't handed closure. I created it. 1 word at a time. To anyone still holding on to someone who treats you like a side character in your own life, walk away. You'll be surprised who you become without them. The post hit 1.2 million reads in 72 hours. Not because I'm special. Because I'm real. Because 121 missed calls was never about revenge. It was about volume, the kind you ignore until it becomes clarity.